you. Well, hey, hello. Thank you so much for coming along and welcome to Stacy Taylor. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Stacy, who he is and what he does. So Stacy's a speaker and a men's mentor, and he supports men to awaken, heal, and step in their masculinity and lead. He guides men to break free from the subconscious narratives that keep them playing small in life and gives them tools to build a marriage, a family, a business, and a life that works at the highest level. And that all sounds very, very flash, and I love it. I love it. But would you unpack it for us and tell us a little bit more about, like, what is it on the most basic level? What do you do to help men?
Yeah, for sure, Talia. First of all, thanks for having me on. And
Pleasure.
yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation. So, what I found as a man, myself on my own personal journey, is I got to a point in life where I found like everything was falling apart. And it wasn't the first time this had happened multiple times in my life. And no matter how hard I tried to, get my life, I had a vision of where I wanted my life to go, what I wanted my relationship to look like, my health, my finances. I'd always reach a point, and for many years I just thought it was bad luck or fate. And
Mm.
then the last time it happened about 3.5 years ago, there was just this moment where I was just sitting with this, and this voice. I can remember I was just going to go back to my old ways of fuck, just get over yourself and dust yourself up and get after it. And this voice whispered in, and it just said to me, "There's something you can't see." And that for me created just a little bit of space, Talia, like a little bit of backstory. My wife had left me, my health was a mess, my finances were ruined, and I was looking at, being early 40s, and everything that I'd worked for was gone.
Wow.
And this little just voice, now I just realized it was my intuition, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, was just saying, this is the time. And that was the day that really shifted my whole life. So I started looking into, I didn't even know anything about healing. I didn't know anything about the subconscious mind. I just thought if we wanted to create the life we wanted, we could create it.
Mm.
And I ended up going on a breath work journey. And that was when my whole reality got shattered with a sledgehammer. And I
Mm.
realized why I'd been looping in life. I realized why I kept recreating or reaching limits and then looking like I was self-sabotage or unconsciously. And
Mm.
so I just started to unpack this. And as I went on a journey, I found some traps and some loopholes within it. And I just started really digging in, and I realized, man, like, Carl Jung says it the best. Um, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you'll call it fate. And once I understood that I'd never actually been in control,
Mm.
I never started this journey to help other men in the beginning.
Mm.
I was just really trying to take back my power, create the life that I truly wanted, the relationship, the finance, the business, the success, while having fun, while not having this fear of losing it.
Mm.
And so
Can
as
I
I
pause
started
you
to,
for a sec and just ask you quickly? So you said, you were introduced to this breath work, and that sounds awesome. But from my perspective, just looking at you on the physical, you're a Kiwi bloke. You look like a masculine Kiwi bloke. So
Yep.
what masculine Kiwi bloke goes, oh, I'm going to go and do some breath work? How did that happen?
So what happened? My wife woke up one day and she said, "I'm done." And I knew that day it was over. I'm like, "Oh fuck, this is actually done this time. We're over." And I remember that day. I remember sitting and I got this voice, and I'm like, "Fuck, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I've done all the personal development courses. I've had all the coaches. I've done all the things." And I remember a few days later, this guy posted up, if you've been suffering from this, I'm like, fuck, this was all me.
Me. Yeah, yeah.
Every single thing he's saying is me. So I reached out to him because I knew him through sort of fitness and sports.
Mm.
And I messaged him, I signed up on the spot and paid him. But this was the crazy thing, Talia. So I drive down to Hamilton, which is about 45 minutes from where I live. I'm all excited. I'm like, oh, this is going to be the best thing ever. And I walk through the doors, and I'll never forget it. I open the doors, and the facilitator was a male, but in the room was six five or six other females, and I literally froze in the door.
Right.
Because, like, like I've worked in the forestry, falling trees, I work out, I do kickboxing, all the stuff. And I
You're
actually
right.
turned to walk out.
Oh,
Like
wow.
I'm like, you can have my money. What the fuck have I done? And I remember walking out, but he caught me out of the corner of my eye, and he come out and he's like, "What's happened?" And I was like, "Oh fuck, I just forgot something in the car," and and he dragged me back in. And I remember, like, I was just already, my ego was already going. I didn't
Mm,
know of a thing called an ego then. It was like, fuck, what have you done, you idiot? And
mm,
then I remember him saying, oh, look, let's go into the space where we're going to run this. And as I walked in and sat down and looked up and looked around, and I was the only male, and I was like, oh, fuck, he's going to ask me first. He knew me, and I'm like, fuck. I just remember having my eyes down like this, and under my breath, I was just like, just don't ask me. Just don't ask me. Just ask anyone else, but don't ask me.
you
And then
energetically
he
invited it.
goes, and then he goes, so we're going to go around, find out what brought you here. And he goes, Stacy, what brought you here? And my heart just sunk. And the cartoons where you see the little devil and the little angel, the
Yeah.
little devil on my shoulder was like, fuck, just lie, just say this, just say that, just da 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 da. Like, you can't tell them the truth. And then that same voice that I heard that led me there said, if not now, then when?
Wow. Flip, that's
And I've even got goosebumps now. And for the first time in my life, Talia, and I just said, fuck, I don't care. And I shared stuff on that floor that I hadn't even told my wife, things I'd been through in my life. I told the truth about my marriage, and I just let it all out. And I cried in front of these women, and I'd never done that in my life. And the relief just from that alone, stepping out of the lie, stepping out of the shadow. And then the lady beside me shares, and she goes, I've got stage 4 cancer. I've got 2 little girls, and I'm fighting for my life. And my husband's cheated on me. Now I'm crying because she's going through it, and the lady around, and they go around. And by the end of it, the coolest thing is, yeah, there was no other men there, but I realized it wasn't just me.
mm,
And that day just changed my whole life because I realized that so many of us are suffering in silence, men and women.
yeah.
And we're so afraid to share the truth for what
Mm.
people think, the judgment of being exposed. But when we expose
Why are
ourselves,
we? Why are we, Stacey? Why are we afraid?
because there's this primal part of us, we're very primal beings, and we need to belong to a tribe.
Yeah.
And so if we have something that we believe is not socially acceptable, like people might judge me, people don't understand that primally that if we're being judged, the deeper primal part of us believes will be exposed and will be cast out of the tribe and will die.
Wow. Wow. So
Yeah. So this
that primal.
it's that primal. So we've had hundreds of thousands of years of evolution growing up in tribes and belonging in tribes.
Mm,
But our modern world has evolved so quickly that we no longer have rites of passage. We're often not in the same tribe for our entire life. And so sharing the truth to the psyche, which is the inner child that's never individuated from their parents because they didn't have a rite of passage, is like you're literally going to share this and you're going to be cast out of the tribe for sharing it because you're going to believe it the deeper. That's why you hide it. We don't
wow.
hide it. That's why we unconsciously hide it, because there's a part of us that fears being seen in that area of our life.
So it's rejection, but it's actually at a deeper primal level. It's not just rejection, it's absolute fear. Fear of like not just the exposure, but fear of being outcast. So
Yeah.
that's your primal concern when you're being vulnerable and real. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And this is why people, especially in a world where there's so much social media and so much expectations of what we should look like and what our relationships look like and our finances and our body,
Mm,
that even reinforces the fear. So, finding a safe space to actually share the truth is the key. Because once you expose yourself, when we talk about the shadow, that's the aspect that we're holding up all these masks in order not to be seen, not for that part of us to be seen. See, if no one had known on the surface, my wife and I had this beautiful relationship, our businesses were thriving and everything was sunshine and rainbows. But
Mm,
that's because we were using so much energy to hold up this illusion. But when you're doing that, you're not in your authenticity.
mm,
So there's a part of you that's using so much energy. It's like holding up a projection that isn't true, a lie that isn't true.
mm.
And, for most men and for a lot of women, life's got to shadow you, bring you to your knees with something really big that's more painful than facing the truth.
I just read that exact quote yesterday. Tell me though, what does brokenness look like to, like, I guess it's different to all men, but what did it look like for you?
There's quite a common theme a lot around men is they'll pretty much they'll guard up their heart. They'll put walls around their heart
Mm,
and they'll just start to shut down. They'll go numb. They may fall to vices or addictions. And then they'll go from that into depression, and then depression can often lead to suicide, or even with the addictions, they'll be unconsciously killing themselves every day because the pain that they're feeling inside, they don't know, especially men, don't know how to process it. They don't know how to feel it. There's an even higher level of fear of showing emotion
mm.
and letting that go. And so it starts to build and bottle up. And for me, it was just shut down. I was literally just shutting down and had gone into survival mode.
Mm. Do you remember at that time, was your wife trying to prompt you? Was she trying to get things out of you, or was she just feeling rejected by your closure and your numbness? Like, what did it look like from her perspective?
So she would shut down a lot. She could see the potential in me, and there was moments where I could see it.
Mm,
But I just looking back, I realized that she got to a space where she felt so emotionally and spiritually and energetically unsafe that she couldn't do it anymore. And
mm,
it was really that break apart. And for most men, it's something like that, whether it's your marriage, your relationship, your health, a business loss, something. But that break apart was like the catalyst. It was the worst thing at the time, but it was the catalyst for me actually going, I'm actually broken
mm,
and I need to be honest about this and I need to do something. And it scares me more than doing something dangerous or something hard.
mm.
And it's the toughest thing I've ever done. And I understand why there's so much resistance from men. But like I've just got to this realization, Talia, that I don't believe any man on the planet is going to escape this journey
Yeah.
because we never had a rite of passage. So we never individuated from our parents.
Yeah.
So we're still undivided internally. And the way that God, the universe, I just say God now,
Yeah.
is going to bring us back together is through our relationships because you're going to attract in someone with a similar wounding to you. And
Mm,
that's
wow.
gonna that's gonna you think about it in a relationship. I use this really cool analogy that people think they fell in love. They didn't actually fall in love. What happens is you attract someone in with a similar wounding with the parent that you have the most unresolved trauma. So when you come together, you temporarily have the absence of your childhood wounding through the experience of being with that person who meets the needs of the parent that didn't meet your needs, if that makes sense.
That is insane. That is actually insane. Wow,
Yeah.
that is massive. Yeah.
And so what happens is universe is gonna show us what wholeness feels like. Because we've all been there in that relationship. You don't need sleep.
Mm,
Men can conquer the world. They'll do anything for that woman. They'll court her. They're romantic. They're safe. They're energetic. They're in their actual masculine energy.
mm,
But it's a temporary fix because that eventually that's going to fracture because it's coming from an external source, and eventually you're going to be faced with the mirror of your both ways, but the mirror of your internal wounding that you're going to have to face in order to
mm.
resolve, heal, and actually move into your power.
So can I just briefly tell you how that resonates with me? That so all of my life I have had only abusive men in my life. Not my last relationship wasn't. I wouldn't say it was abusive, but it was quite disrespectful. But I've always known men just to be abusers, and I've always only experienced abuse. So I guess, like you said, you energetically attract the person that from your wounds. Um, and it's been horrific, like horrific relationships. But the last whole full year, I've been on a self-worth journey, and it's been slow, and I've been picking away at it. It hasn't been like I haven't been going to counselling every week or anything like that. I've just been learning about myself and learning, just healing really slowly. And I'm not even kidding you. It is like have repelled every abusive person. I've been able to say no thank you when I've had a communications with a male, and I instantly know that, oh gosh, that red flag is there, which I didn't used to know. I didn't used to
Yeah.
notice them. And I used to also let men choose me. They used to bags me. I'm having her. And now I'm actually have been able to say, actually, no thanks, you don't suit this part of me or that part of my values or this part of my morals or whatever. So I'm able to actually, without telling them that, but you know what I mean? Actually being able
Yeah.
to make these choices for myself because of that self-worth that's been built. So and I do a lot of that with the girls in the 30 plus community. Like we do a lot of self-worth stuff and talking about, things like that. But there's a lot of broken women in there and they're all on a journey. How though do they so they've got these men who are broken and they're trying to work through their stuff. So how do they get, like it's no use us just being the ones who are doing the healing. How do you get the guys to acknowledge that they need healing? Like how does that happen? You had like probably like a spiritual intervention, it sounds like. How do other men get healed?
For men have got to go usually the most painful route possible. So like I get messages every day from women saying, how do I get my man to go on the journey? And I just encourage them, just keep doing your own work and honoring yourself.
Wow.
Like
Okay.
just keep doing your own work and honoring yourself because he's never going to be able to hear it unless the marriage breaks apart.
Mm,
Most men won't be able to hear it. They won't be able to see it. They won't believe there's anything wrong at the deepest level. And
wow.
their wife or partner can be screaming that, this isn't working, but they won't get it until something breaks. So, the biggest thing I've learned on this journey is honor yourself, do your work. You may be able to
Mm,
sow the seed,
mm.
but you want a man to come to the realization on his own so that he feels empowered with the choice.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, because they do have to, men do have to feel like it's their choice, eh? Not that they were like pushed into it or like poke the bear, go do the work. Yeah.
yeah, and often I've had men that come in because they've kind of been pushed by their wife or their partner because
Uh,
their wife said, look, if you don't do it, I'm out.
yeah.
And so they come in, but they've come in under like, they've sort of been pushed into it. They're not really into it. But a man who comes in on his own, knowing now that could be the relationship breaking, it could be just this realization, a spiritual awakening where he goes, holy heck,
Mm,
like I'm actually not who I think I am. I'm not living up to my potential. I'm
mm,
lost, I'm empty, I'm hollow, and they come in. But yeah, the biggest thing I see, and I believe for women is, honor yourself. And sometimes that could be you have to leave.
yes,
Um,
exactly.
and that can be sometimes the catalyst, when you get to a point where you're doing the self work and you go, you know what, I'm actually betraying myself or abandoning myself by staying in this relationship. And the ego loves the illusion of what the relationship could be, what the man could potentially be. So we've got to really, it's really about honoring ourselves and letting God, the universe, um, awaken that man to the journey that he's going to have to go on.
Amazing. And they don't always awaken, do they? Like some of them will just be so full of ego that even if they get left, they're like, well, it wasn't me, it was you. Like it's not my problem, it's your problem. So what is like so in that healing work, there has to be ego death, right? There has to be talk about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so I have the saying, I love you, I do, but I love me more. And
Mm,
so for the woman out there, just remember that, I do love him. And, he's
mm,
given me whatever, but I love me more. I'm going to choose myself.
yeah.
I've seen this recently with a couple of guys that I know, a couple of friends. Their relationship broke up, 10, 15 years. Both of them had long-term relationships. They reached out to me. They were really keen. They gave themselves some space. And then the next minute I seen them back to their old ways. Now they're in the gym getting in shape. Now they're doing all the things. And I realized, oh, you just restarted the pattern again. Because
Wow.
if you create space, your ego, which is your defense mechanism, the wounded inner child, the protector of you,
Mm.
which is usually in a childhood age.
Ah,
And
wow. So like a little kid mind. Wow.
yep. So you see it like, okay, this relationship's broken. I need to do something deeper. I know it. They don't take action. They create space. Then the ego talks it out, talks them out of it. And the thing that people don't understand about the ego is that it works in negation. So a negation is a contradiction or a denial of the truth.
Mm.
So it's an illusion of what you think you want, which is actually reinforcing the lack, scarcity, or the fear programming that you have inside of you. And it's not until you can actually look that in the mirror and dissolve that you'll break free from it. And those guys will just repeat the same cycle, but the cycle will be shorter this time because the ego, the defense mechanisms are getting more and more power because they've reinforced the programs more and more by fighting against them.
Far out. It's so intense. It's just like, what the heck? This is mind-blowing stuff. So,
Yeah.
ego damaged, is that like a childhood thing always? Is that like something that's happened when you're a child and then you just grow those protective thing, the mechanisms, and just keep yourself all protected all the way through to adulthood? How does that start?
Yeah. So basically, you'll go through some experiences always in our childhood.
Mm,
We'll go through some experiences where something will happen that we can't handle.
mm,
What happens as a child, say mum has had a bad day and she's had a few drinks, or dad's the same and he lashes out at you. A child doesn't go, oh, dad's drunk, he's had a bad day, he's an asshole. A child goes, something is wrong with me. And so what's formed in that moment is usually you'll go into fight, flight, and then you'll go into freeze. So when you go into freeze, even though you're sitting in your home or you're around your family or someone you know, or your body is gonna perceive that you died, that you're about to die. So
mm.
your nervous system will freeze.
Oh,
It takes a snapshot of the event. But what people don't understand, that gets stored in the body. So that's where the somatic work comes in. But what the
oh,
psyche does is it creates a shadow need. So it'll form a shadow need in order to get love. So you'll now change your authenticity. You'll come up with a construct of I'm not loved, I'm not safe, I don't matter, I'm bad. And so what you're going to do is to keep connected to the tribe, which is mum, dad, your caregivers, your school, you're going to reinforce that problem. This is why we loop over and over, because you're going to keep recreating the same fear because you haven't actually moved beyond it. And in those moments, because as human beings, we have to connect. So if we can't form a connection through a safe, emotionally, energetically healed parents, we're going to create a shadow way of connecting. This is why we'll do this, why we'll go into the same abusive relationship, because that's actually our template for love.
whoa, that is actually, oh, that's big. That is massive. So what is so you go freeze. So what do you create? What pattern do you create? Or like how do you no, how does somebody manage when the illustration of the drunk dad or whatever. So what do they actually do? What's the action that they do to protect themselves, or what does that look like?
So what they'll do is they'll freeze.
Yep.
Once you freeze, your whole body and being and psyche believe you're in danger of dying.
Yeah.
So you've gone, and it doesn't take much as a child to go from fight, flight to freeze. It could be not being picked up from the bus. It could be dad looking at you a funny way. So
Yeah.
what happens is you'll freeze, and then what your psyche does or the subconscious does is it, because the threats are no longer out there like tigers, lions, sharks, the threats aren't always out there in the future. So what it does is it creates a program, and it's always a negative meaning about myself. This
Wow.
is why I keep recreating it. So
Oh,
it can be I'm bad, so I'll try to be good, but in trying to be good, I'll get to a point where I'll do something wrong and then I'll feel bad, or that person will hit me or abuse me, or I'll lose my money. And so we've got these 10 shadow needs that, because we have never had rites of passage, we now have these 10 shadow needs that form our templates of love. And once we form a template of love, even if it's negative, we are going to recreate it because it's a way that it's our form of connection. This is why you see so many people suffering. And no matter how hard they try to get out of it, the worse it gets. And in fact, the more they try to get out of it, they more reinforce that they're in danger. So if you grow up in an environment where your template is, I'm not safe and I'm not loved, what the ego is going to go to do is try to get love and get safety from someone else,
ooh.
which is always going to be ripped away from you. So you go back to feeling the same way, and you'll stay looping in this pattern your entire life until you dissolve it.
Oh, this is just actually mind blowing. Such so for me, like we grew up in a really angry environment. So I am so triggered by angry men. but it's not just angry men. It's anyone with a look on their face that it feels in my soul like you're angry. So you could
Yep.
be tired, you could have had a bad day, you could have had, like, you literally could be anything. But if you've got a face that's not smiling, I'll just think you're angry. And then my body goes all tense. I'll reject you. It's like, so I'm doing the healing work now from that. I'm doing heaps better with that. But it's literally, I know that pattern now. I'm like, I keep myself safe from angry, not just men, just angry people. But I always feel like it's my fault. Like, so if
Yeah.
somebody gets a little bit yucky on their face, I'm like, what have I done? Why don't they like me? Why are they doing that to me? So crazy, eh?
So
Absolutely
as a little girl, like I said, you don't say dad's drunk and he's angry. You say it's my fault.
done wrong. Yeah.
So your nervous system and your whole psyche is perceived that if someone's angry that I love or care about or are close to, it's my fault. So
Yeah.
I need to shut down and protect myself. And your nervous system is working 10,000 times faster than your cognitive brain. You know,
Mm.
like I did a session with a lady in Australia about a year ago. So she reached out, she'd seen some of my videos, she wanted to do some work with me, she booked in. Soon as we came on the Zoom call, soon as she seen me, her shoulders went like this.
Wow.
And we just started talking, and I said, it was a man that hurt you. And she goes, how do you know? And I said, because your whole body told me. So even though we were on the other side of she was in Australia, I was in New Zealand, her nervous system said, that's the same kind of tiger that hurt you. Be on guard, be on
Oh,
guard, be on edge. All
powerful.
right.
Yeah.
And so what the cool thing about this is that when we're children and we're vulnerable, now being vulnerable is just being our authentic self, playing, joyful, open, expressing. And
Mm.
then someone hurts us or snaps at us,
Mm.
we are going to close that down and put on the masks that we believe we need to put on in order to be safe in our family and then in the world. And then the further we get from our authentic self, the more pressure that's going to be created until something breaks, because God always wants you to come back to your love and light.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, yeah. Oh, this is just such a huge topic, and I can just think of so many examples. But like with men, it just seems to be the thing that they don't like, they feel harder to get to. So the men that I've experienced in my life, they would probably never admit that they had something wrong. In fact, to the point of, having a husband who was a narcissist. Like, it feels like there's no healing for those personalities. Like, have they gone too far into that, like, protective mode? Because it is usually something that's happened to them in their childhood, eh? Have they gone so deep into their protective mode that they just will never come out of it? Narcissism feels like you've crossed a line where you can't heal anymore. Is there any way back for some? Are there some people who can't be healed?
Yeah, I've kind of just come to the realization that not every person is meant to awaken in this lifetime.
Wow.
Now, I believe everyone can,
Mm.
but you've got to choose to. And
Mm.
it's usually narcissists will project onto the other person and they'll never want to take responsibility. So while as a man, until you can take responsibility and accountability for your part in it, you can never heal.
Mm.
I had to take responsibility and realize that shit, I wasn't showing up in the way that my wife needed. I
Yeah.
wasn't emotionally and mentally safe, even though I thought I was.
Yeah.
But you've got to get to that point where life either breaks you or you numb out to some kind of vice, and that's how you cope. But you're literally dying a slow and painful death. I always say
Mm.
life will draw it out of you. It can draw it out of you like a painful, slow syringe of suffering, or you can actually go, right, I'm going to rip this out and go and face it and deal with it,
But then the crazy thing, and this is what I've learned as well, because I think I had those protective mechanisms even to the point where I didn't like have people. I had to have the last word. It made me feel like I was in control of, no more men going to hurt me, no more man's going to tell me, be the boss of me. So having that last word felt like, some strength. But as I've healed, I can't believe the peace and the absolute peace, and not ever even needing to be right about anything, for one. And also vulnerability. I always thought vulnerability was absolutely terrifying. I thought, if I'm vulnerable, you're going to hurt me. But now, as the healing's happening, I'm like, the vulnerability feels so strong. I
know.
feel like the strongest version of myself when I can be the most almost like weakest version of myself. Like in the weakness is the strength. So weird. So weird. And I don't feel scared that someone's going to hurt me because I understand I can put up boundaries and things, but I just don't have to take on board, or I don't have to close myself off to people anymore because I'm healing. But yeah, I think that vulnerable people who don't want to be vulnerable, who hide their vulnerability, it almost feels like it's demonic. It just feels like it's a wall that is so hard to get down. But once it's down, there's so much freedom. But how do they get it down? Or how do you break away so that people can feel like it's safe to be vulnerable? Like, how do you do that?
So when, like the reason you feel safe to be vulnerable is because you're no longer going to attract in the men that you used to attract in, because life's a mirror, it's not a window. And our
Mm,
frequency is what we frequently see. So
mm,
we can be there going, fuck, I don't want another angry, aggressive man like me sitting on that floor. And we literally attract them in because we're going to attract in that fear to
yeah.
resolve it and dissolve it from our internal psyche and
Wow.
from our structure, release that shadow. Shadow creates space. Space is filled with light. That's why you feel light. And now you're going to attract in a different frequency of man. And so, it's like human beings, we only learn through suffering. And, like the guy that just come to me recently, like his marriage broke apart. He thought it was over. He wanted to throw in his high level job, everything, and came and sat down with me for one session. And he goes, what are we going to talk about? And I said, I don't need to talk to you. I already figured out what's going on the discovery call. And he's like, what? I asked him a few questions, and within 35 minutes, it's bang. His whole reality is just falling apart. And he's actually seeing the truth, because that when the ego sees itself, it will dissolve, but it cannot, you'll never be able to, you'll very rarely, as you do the work, you'll have some moments, but you'll really be able to see your own ego. And the ego works in language. So I listen to language.
Mm,
So the way they're speaking to me, their ego will give it away. Like
mm,
they'll say, I lost my wife. So if we look at it primarily, lost means I lost my tribe and I'm dying. So
mm,
somewhere in their life, they felt like they lost a part of themselves in their own relationship. So
mm,
I just guide them back to those moments to see it, because the body remembers. And when you sit down in a space with someone who's done the work, my frequency is already of a level that your nervous system knows it's safe.
yeah.
And so what, even in this conversation, you'll notice that between us, there's this safety, there's this nervous system that I can just share here and open up. And so what happens is the ego starts to try to defend itself through language. And as it starts to defend itself, I'll just pick up on the subtle things in the way that they said something. And then I just ask open answered questions. And as soon as you start asking questions, all of a sudden you'll just see them. When they see it, they'll literally freeze in the chair, or they'll start shaking, or they'll start releasing the event. And then I'll take them into it, and I'll get them to see what they truly heard. Like, I don't matter, I'm not loved, I'm
Oh,
bad. And as soon as you can see it, the construct or the context that you've been living under, it dissolves. And then you just come back to your natural state of being, which is love.
that is so powerful. This conversation is healing. Oh, it's absolutely amazing. I love every bit of this. All right, so I mean, we could just talk and talk. Hey, I listened to your interview with Nat on RCR, and I got that she just wanted to talk to you all day long because she resonates with so much of this. I feel
Yeah.
exactly the same way. I feel like I could talk and talk to you. You did mention that you work with women, so it's not specifically all men that you are helping, or is it predominantly men?
It's predominantly men. Early on, I was working with women,
Yeah,
and I still do now and then if someone reaches out to me, but I just kind of had this realization, like I can hold space to help a woman heal,
yeah,
and but I can't teach or help women to be women because I'm not a woman.
yeah. I
And there's
heard you
this
say that,
whole,
something like that. Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and so like I really believe that, like, yeah, I love, people, women that have been through sexual abuse or physical abuse or mental abuse. I love to be able to hold space for those people because, vulnerability when we're hurt by someone equals trauma, and vulnerability while we're held in safety, while we process that, equals healing. So like that lady in Australia, you could literally just see her whole body relax as
Mm,
she started to discharge this and realize that she was safe. But yeah, I've
yeah.
really just focused on men because there's not a lot of men doing men's work
Yeah,
at the
exactly.
deeper level,
Mm.
and I think it's time that we really, like catch up to the women because the women are out
Oh,
there doing the work.
yeah, and that's why I said at the beginning, like, oh man, we have lots of these conversations online, and there's always posts, and the women are supporting each other so well. And it's like had men say to me, "Oh, can you open a 30+ men's group?" And it's like, well, I mean, I could, but it would be no use because if I facilitated that, I'm not a man. So what you're saying, you're not a woman, and so there really needs to be people in each arena doing this work. So I love it. I honor it. I respect it so much what you're doing. I think it's absolutely amazing. And I would really love to get some more information. So we need some links for your. So I know that you're on Instagram as I am Stacy Taylor, or is it I am
Yeah,
Stacy
that's
Taylor? Yeah.
right.
Yep. So
Yeah.
I'm going to put some links up on this video as well, and get the information out there because I think there's going to be a lot of women who, even if they have to prompt their men to come and have a look at your stuff, and it's real. It's that whole Kiwi bloke thing. It's like if Stacy Taylor can be vulnerable and drop his ego and just be real,
Yeah.
then anybody can because you look about as blokey and manly as any guy I've seen. So you can do
But
it, they can do it. And
and that was probably that's why I really stayed away from that space for so long because I thought it was all hippies and vegan soy boys and all this
yeah,
stuff. And
yeah,
there was no guy that I'm like, oh yeah, man, he's like me. Like,
yeah,
when guys sit down with me and they're like, oh man, you look like me, or and you can resonate. And
yeah.
it's like thing, when you resonate with someone, half the battle's already done because you're already in that space and you're like, oh fuck, he's the same as me, and
Yeah, just
this is
authentic,
what he's been through.
real, down to earth. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
And I have to say as well, so because if you read energies and words and all that sort of thing, I have to say before even doing all the healing that I'd done, you would definitely be the kind of person who I would feel like I would be like, oh, thank goodness, a man who doesn't make me feel like because I really struggled with men and their energy and their egos. Like I really, really struggled. So if I ever came across a man just with your kind of energy, I would just feel it's kind of that dad energy actually. It's like
yeah,
dada, the one that you wish
yeah,
that you had and you didn't. That nice
yeah.
energy. And I think that's so important because there's so many broken families, broken people, and so many and little girls need men and male figures, and women need men, and they all need each other, but they
Yeah.
need each other to be safe. That's the thing. So
That's why I do this work, Talia, because there's been an attack on masculinity, there's been an attack on the family, there's been an attack on the woman at the deepest
mm,
level. And
mm,
for our women and children to truly thrive, we need strong men.
that is
And I'm
so
not
true.
not not just physically strong, I'm talking mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically strong, a
Yeah.
protector, a provider. I always say the soulful savage, the guy that with his family and wife is so soulful and his heart's cracked open and he's so loving. But
Mm,
on the other side of that, in his business or if he has to protect them, there's that savage there. There's that part of him that's there that will stand for what he loves, that will defend it to his last breath. But he really, or if ever, has to pull that out because he's actually done the work to heal those inner wounds. So his frequency doesn't need that. He's standing in so much truth, so much love, and so much power that nothing can really impact them from the external world. And that's really where we want to get men to, that they can, I say men want to be like a mountain. Like the women are like the storm around us. Some days it's beautiful and sunshiny, and some days there's a storm. But a man who's emotionally safe, he can stand in that storm. He's got boundaries. He can hold her. He can be there. He can also put up a boundary if it's getting too much.
mm,
But until we get that space, our children can't thrive, our women can't thrive. And, it's a co-creation thing, but men are meant to lead.
oh,
It's
thank you.
my whole thing that men are meant to lead. At
Mm,
some point we have to be responsible and say, you know what, I'm not fucking who I think I am.
mm,
I've got this ego, I've got this bravado, I'm not mentally safe, I'm not emotionally safe, I've got these vices, and go and
mm.
do something about it, because if not, it's just going to your children. That's why
Yeah.
it's called a generational curse.
Yes, exactly. And even in our group, we do have some little quite some heated debates. They usually stay under control, but some heated debates because there's lots of women who are just like, F you to all men because they've just never experienced safety with a man. And but
Mm.
I understand, and I grew up just being the boss. I was the boss. I was a boss of myself. I did everything. I could fix my own car and mow my own lawns, and I can do all the things. Like I've literally lived my life like a guy and a girl, so the girl and the guy. And I've always been like in control of everything, like the guy, making sure everybody's okay and everybody's safe. But I've actually traumatized my son because so while trying to protect him from angry men and from ego fueled men, I've actually kept him away from men. So now his feelings are like more anger towards me for not having let him just experience men, like
Mm.
having like someone strong. So I thought I was protecting him because I was being the protector, but I was doing it as a woman, not as a man, and an unhealed one as well. So it's crazy. It's actually crazy that now I've gone through all this healing. I'm like, men are amazing. We need them, but we need them to be safe. We just need them
Yeah.
to be safe, but strong, not weak little, thingies, but safe. Safe.
And one thing I'll add to that, in the modern world, there's a lot of women like yourself that have had to do it on their own. You're very independent, you're
Mm,
go-getters, you've got dreams and visions and goals.
mm,
So men have to go to another level.
mm,
Because to hold a woman who is like that, you're going to have to be fucking certain of who you are at the deepest level,
mm.
that when she's being that you can handle it, that
Yeah.
you can actually just hold that space, that you don't need to, and I think that's one of the things that we to really get strong men, we've got to level up and beyond another level, because like I share, the feminine isn't just going to go into the feminine because you want her to.
Mm, yeah.
You're going to have to be like that mountain that's like
Yeah.
rock solid, and it
Most
got,
secure.
and men, and this is why I believe, this is why I coach men, is I believe men need to be around other men. They need to be around a council of men that they
Mm,
can be shit to, that they can talk to, that
mm,
they can be called out on outside of their relationship. Hey, you need to level up in this area. Like I called one of my friends out a couple of days ago and I said, hey man, like I see what you're doing and that's not acceptable. And I love you. That's why I'm calling you out. And he's like, fuck, you're right. I said, this going to
wow.
cause ripples, but we have that kind of relationship, and
Wow.
he'll do the same to me. And so it is time for men to come back to being men, and
Hallelujah.
let's do it.
Do it. Let's do it. Okay, so tell us what do you do in terms of helping and counseling people, or like do you have like groups, or do you do one-on-one, or do you have a program? What does it look like?
So my main program at the moment is a 6-week like deep dive into helping men basically break through all those narratives and literally shatter their old reality with a sledgehammer,
Mm,
so they can see the truth and start to piece it back together. Because once a man understands something, he's empowered. And
mm,
no man that I've ever met truly understands his emotions or subconscious, so it's in the blind, so he's afraid of it. So
mm,
as soon as I smash these things open and men start to go, fuck, I can say that, or I can put a boundary up here, or that's why that's happening. As soon as he can take action. So that's my main program. But in the new year, I've just been working on a new website, and I'm going to be putting together like a 12-month group container where men can come in each month and basically go through the process and literally create a brotherhood of men that are lifting each other up, and physically, mentally, in their business, where they can bring their problems instead of taking it home to their wife. Because I heard a stat a while back that the average man doesn't even have one friend that he can call after 8 p.m.
that's
So men have become these lone wolves, and the only person they feel like they can go to is their wife. They take it to their wife or partner. That's destroying the relationship, because
frozen.
that's
Mm,
not where you should be taking everything.
mm.
And so I really want to create that. So you'll see that coming out sort of January, early February, and then that's
Oh,
probably going to be my main focus moving forward.
oh, powerful, and it feels like almost like a relief. So, because we really desperately need this. So if you create a group, will it be like a Facebook community group, and will it only be people who are doing the course, or will it just be open to any male who wants to have kind of healing, or like? address.
So I'm going to be putting a lot of content. So I'm just really working on myself at the moment. So my Instagram in the new year is going to be revamped, and so I'll be giving a lot of this away for free to men on
Mm,
the internet. So I'm going to be dropping a lot of wisdom, and then this container will be a paid group container.
yeah,
Because it's like I've just realized that men, we need to invest. As soon as we invest, we're vested in it.
yeah, that's
I
so
say you
true.
have to pay attention. Anything you
Mm,
get free, especially as a man, you won't value it. So, when you've got some skin in the game and you have to work. But what I learned from a lot of the guys that I watched when I was going through it, that you can learn so much from, free content.
mm,
And, I just want to get to the point where men are like, fuck, that's where I want to go. And that's how I
yeah,
want my life to be. And that's what I want with my relationship and my being a father and things like
yeah.
that.
Yeah. So actually just to back that up as well, like your Instagram and like just where I've heard all your little sound bites, that's the bit that I was like, oh, this guy is it. He is like this is the guy that I want to like that's us girls. Send you guys here. Like that's what it feels like. It feels like you're the right person for the job. You're exactly the right level of masculine. Like it just feels right without the ego. It just feels right. It feels good. And I would just listen to your stuff on loop. I would just listen to it because it's so
Thank you.
easy to listen to and it makes so much sense and it's not judgmental. It doesn't feel like anyone's getting attacked. It literally just feels like you're just literally speaking truth and the truth will set you free, right?
I
Like,
say that all the time.
feels like so yeah, I just hope that you look, it'll be awesome if you just keep on creating content for your Instagram, and I know that's still a lot of work, but you could literally be going on a drive and just speaking your thoughts, and I think all of that would be so powerful because everything you talk about has power in it. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. Cool.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll hook up again. We'll do some more chats later on, but I'll put your links and different things into this video, and yeah, and then the girls can go check you out themselves. But thank you so much for this chat. It has been powerful. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've said wow about 15 ish times because it really is actually quite mind blowing. So thank you, and I'm just going to be binge watching your videos, so just keep them coming.
I will. I will. Thank you, Talia. Thanks for having me on,
Okay,
and
thanks so
thanks for the
very,
amazing
very
questions.
much. Okay, talk soon.
See ya.
Yeah. I'm just, oh, damn. Okay, I'm going to have to actually cut the end off that because I can't turn off record now, can I? Here we go. I'll just keep chatting. I'll just edit it out the end.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
thank
cool.
you. That was absolutely so many levels of brilliant. It's amazing. Like simple stuff, but so brilliant and powerful.
Thank, thank
Amazing.
you. I only I realized this the other day. I only speak to what I've done, and I only speak to the journey that I've been on. So it's just truth,
Yeah.
and I don't judge because I realized that I was judging myself, and you